He worked 2 jobs to fund my degree, my lifestyle, my dreams. And I still cheated. While he came home exhausted, I was out drinking wine with a man who said I was too good for him. I cheated, then left my husband for good. And within weeks, his life was turned upside down. I walked away when he needed me most. The same man who had helped me build everything from nothing. His name was Miles. And he wasn't the kind of man women write novels about. He wasn't edgy or magnetic or mysterious. He didn't walk into rooms and command them. He didn't flirt with waitresses or make clever, cutting remarks. Miles was soft, not weak. Soft. The kind of soft that holds the door for strangers, remembers your mother's birthday, and never lets the gas tank dip below half when you've had a long day. I met him when I was 21, waitressing full-time at a 24-hour diner while trying to juggle night classes at the local college. My financial aid had fallen through. My dad had already co-signed too many loans. And every week, I felt myself sinking deeper into the quiet, terrifying idea that maybe I wasn't meant to have more than this. A rotating schedule, aching feet, and greasy aprons that always smelled like burnt bacon and sour coffee. Miles came in every Friday night, usually just before midnight. He worked the late shift at a warehouse down the highway. Always sat at the same corner booth, always ordered the same thing: grilled cheese, black coffee, and a slice of apple pie he rarely touched. He wasn't loud or attention-seeking. But he saw me, really saw me. At first, I thought he was just being nice. Guys flirt, especially with waitresses. I'd heard it all. The pickup lines, the jokes, the "you gotta smile like a movie star" nonsense. But Miles was different. He didn't compliment me the way other men did. He asked how my exams went, noticed when I looked tired. Once, during a storm that knocked out half the block's power, he stayed an hour after the diner closed, just to make sure I had a ride home. I didn't fall in love with Miles all at once. It happened in tiny, almost invisible moments. The way he folded napkins perfectly, even when no one was watching. How he never checked his phone when we talked. The way his eyes lit up when he talked about his mom. A woman who raised him alone after his dad left when he was 9. He didn't have much, but what he had, he gave without hesitation. We started dating slowly, cautiously. I wasn't used to men like him. My last boyfriend had been a loud, hot, tempered bartender with a motorcycle and a wandering eye. Miles was steady, reliable. He walked me to class, helped me study, brought me soup when I was sick. And I remember thinking, in those early days, maybe this is what love is supposed to feel like. Not butterflies, not chaos, just peace. When I told him I wanted to transfer to a state university 2 hours away to finish my degree, I expected hesitation. Maybe even a breakup, but instead, he offered to come with me. "I'll find work up there," he said simply. "We'll figure it out." And we did, at least for a while. The first year was hard. He worked 2 jobs, mornings at a delivery warehouse, evenings at a gas station. Sometimes he didn't get home until 2 a.m. Sometimes I barely saw him at all. But he always made sure the fridge was stocked, that my textbooks were paid for, that I never missed a deadline because I was too tired from work. He took care of everything, and I let him. That's the part I don't think I'll ever forgive myself for. How easy it became to let him shoulder it all. I used to cry over grades and stress and whether I'd ever make something of myself. Miles never cried, never complained, not once. Not even when he came home limping from a fall at the warehouse and still offered to make me dinner, because I had finals. We lived in a tiny, 1-bedroom apartment with paper, thin walls and neighbors who argued at 3 a.m. The furniture was secondhand. The mattress sagged. We never went out, couldn't afford to. Our idea of a date night was frozen pizza and a Netflix password borrowed from his cousin, but he made it feel like home. Every time I felt like giving up, he reminded me why I started. He believed in me with this stubborn, unshakable certainty that felt bigger than love. like he'd built his whole life around lifting me up. And for a while, I was grateful. Deeply, sincerely grateful. Things started to shift the year I got my internship. It was at a prestigious mental health clinic uptown. Polished walls, high-profile clients, staff that wore tailored blazers, and drank oat milk lights with their manicured fingers. I walked in on my first day wearing thrift store flats and a stitched purse Miles had saved up for. I felt out of place, unsure, invisible, but the longer I stayed, the more I learned to fake it. And eventually I didn't have to fake it anymore. I started to rise. Slowly, then all at once. Professors noticed me. Patients respected me. My supervisors said things like, "You've got real promise," and "You'll go far in this field." For the first time in my life, I felt like I wasn't just surviving, I was becoming someone. At the clinic, I was Ems Hartley. At home, I was still, "Babe, you left the stove on again." Miles didn't change. That was the problem. He was still the same man, tired, giving, loyal to a fault. But I had changed. Or maybe I'd always been this way, and success just gave it permission to surface. He came home in work boots. I came home in heels. He talked about discount gas prices. I talked about case studies in neuroplasticity. We started speaking different languages, and I was the one who stopped translating. I told myself I was just tired, stressed, that I needed space. I started staying late at the clinic, volunteering for extra hours, telling him I had study groups and networking mixers. He never questioned it. He trusted me, and I used that trust like a shield. Because somewhere along the way, I started noticing someone else. That someone else was Julian. He was a licensed behavioral therapist who led group sessions on trauma recovery at the clinic where I interned. Early 40s, sharp dresser, salt, and pepper stubble, and that effortless charisma that made everyone lean in just a little closer when he spoke. He was the kind of man who knew his power and used it with surgical precision. He wasn't married. Twice, divorced, no kids. I found that out within a week of being assigned to assist with his documentation logs. He dropped it casually, like it didn't matter, but it did, because it made him safe, available, unbound, worldly. He called me Hartley. Even after I corrected him with my first name, said it sounded too polished to waste on syllables. I laughed too hard at that, and I hated myself for it later. But in the moment, it felt like being seen. Not for what I did or where I came from, but for what I was becoming. Julian made me feel grown, elevated, like I was no longer the tired waitress scraping through community college. Like I had stepped into something more refined, more deserving. At home, Miles was peeling coupons off flyers and checking for sales at the grocery store. At the clinic, Julian was quoting Jung, sipping imported coffee, and asking me things like, "When was the last time someone asked you what you needed?" I don't know when the line started to blur. Maybe it was the late nights finishing reports together. Maybe it was the time his hand brushed mine, and I didn't pull away. Maybe it was when I started wearing lipstick again, just on clinic days. What I do know is that the first time we kissed, it didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like a reward. It felt like I deserved it, and I couldn't get enough of it. It was after hours. We were both working on discharge summaries in his office. The clinic was quiet, humming with that after dark stillness that makes everything feel closer, heavier. I was ranting about a patient who'd triggered me during a session. Someone who reminded me too much of my own father. Julian didn't interrupt. He just listened. When I stopped talking, he reached across the desk and touched my wrist. Just briefly, just enough. And he said, "You don't have to carry all of that alone." Then, before I could react, he leaned forward and kissed me. I kissed him back. It wasn't hungry or rough. It was slow, almost reverent. And when it ended, I didn't speak. I just stared at him. My breath shaky, my stomach twisted in guilt and adrenaline, and I walked out. I cried in the parking lot, Not because I regretted it, but because I didn't. At home that night, Miles had made my favorite, lemon chicken with rosemary potatoes. He had candles lit, a cheap bottle of wine. He looked up when I walked in and smiled like nothing in the world had changed, because for him it hadn't. He didn't know his wife had kissed another man 2 hours earlier. Didn't know I'd sat in my car practicing my smile before walking through the door. Didn't know I was already rewriting our love story in my head, editing out the parts that no longer felt exciting enough. The affair didn't start all at once. There were weeks between that first kiss and the next time it happened. But something had shifted. I began to dress differently, speak differently. I started imagining what life might look like if I didn't come home to budget spreadsheets and gas station receipts. If I didn't have to feel guilty for wanting more than the man who had given me everything. Julian fed that fantasy. He made comments like, "You're too bright to be dimmed by a small life. You deserve to be in spaces that match your energy. Why should you apologize for outgrowing people who aren't evolving?" Each word was a seed, and I watered them with resentment. Meanwhile, Miles never changed. Still folding my laundry, still packing my lunches, still waking up before dawn to shovel snow off the car so I wouldn't be late, still asking how my internship was going, and believing me when I said, "Busy, but good." He didn't know I'd started deleting texts. Didn't know my study groups were now wine bars and hotel rooms. Didn't know I'd begun comparing his calloused hands to Julian's smooth ones. Didn't know I looked at him some nights and felt embarrassment. That's the part that makes me sick now. The shame wasn't about what I was doing. It was about him. How I started seeing him as a symbol of everything I thought I'd grown past. Small apartment, secondhand clothes, modest life. He was still living in the dream we built together. But I was already outgrowing it. The first time Julian and I slept together, it was nothing like the movies. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't tender. It was hurried, electric, and selfish. The kind of encounter that leaves your heart racing and your conscience in ruins. He pulled me into his apartment like he'd been starving for me, like waiting had been some kind of cruelty. We didn't speak, just heavy breaths and hands that didn't ask for anything, but wanted everything at the same time. I held on to him, forgetting completely that I had a man waiting for me back home. A man who loved me with his everything. I was too caught up. The whole thing lasted maybe 20 minutes, maybe less. But afterward, I lay there in his bed, staring at the ceiling, while he scrolled through his phone like I was already fading from the room. I didn't feel desired. Not anymore. Still, I dressed, composed myself, reapplied lipstick, and drove home in silence, windows cracked just enough to keep the guilt from suffocating me. When I walked through the door, Miles was asleep on the couch. His boots were still on. A heating pad lay across his shoulder, the one he'd injured unloading trucks last week. His dinner was cold, half eaten, pushed to the side like he'd waited for me until exhaustion took over. The TV was playing a rerun of the same old sitcom we used to watch curled up together, back when things felt simpler. I didn't say a word. I just stood there in the doorway, staring at him, while a single question repeated in my head like a drumbeat. What the heck did I just do? But I didn't wake him. Didn't confess. Didn't cry. I walked quietly into the bathroom, turned on the shower, stripped off every trace of what I'd just done, and stepped under the scalding water. I scrubbed every inch of my skin until it stung. Not because I felt ashamed, but because I didn't want Miles to smell another man on me when he hugged me in the morning. Because somewhere, even in betrayal, I still wanted to be seen as someone worthy of love. I started fantasizing about ending it. With Miles, I mean. I pictured myself packing a bag, sitting him down gently, telling him the truth, or some diluted, prettier version of it, saying things like, "We've grown apart, Or, this isn't the life I see for myself anymore. But every time I came close, something stopped me. His kindness, his tired eyes, the way he still looked at me like I was the best thing that ever happened to him. And deep down, I knew, ending it wouldn't just hurt him. It would destroy him. Because he didn't just love me. He'd built his entire world around me. He had worked himself into exhaustion to give me the chance to become someone better, and I had used that chance to betray him. But I told myself it wouldn't last, that Julian wasn't permanent, that I'd get it out of my system, that I'd eventually come back to Earth and be better. Until the night Julian said the thing that changed everything. We were in his car, parked outside my apartment. I was adjusting my coat, fixing my lipstick in the mirror, about to go back upstairs to a man who had probably folded my pajamas and left them on the bed like he always did. Julian looked at me and said, "You know, you don't have to keep pretending you're still in love with him." And for the first time I believed him. So I listened. I ended it on a Tuesday. I still remember it vividly. There was no fight. No dramatic screaming match. No suitcase thrown down the stairs or shattered photo frames. Just a quiet kitchen. The smell of garlic from the pasta he'd made. A table already set for two. And Miles still in his work boots, smiling at me like he always did. Like I was the one good thing in his tired, heavy life. He looked up from the pan as I walked in. "Hey, you're just in time. Garlic's a little strong, but..." He stopped when he saw my face. "Everything okay?" I nodded. Then I shook my head. Then I sat down across from him and said, quietly, "I think I need to leave." He blinked. "Leave?" His voice wasn't angry, just confused. "Like tonight?" "Work stuff." I swallowed hard. My hands were trembling in my lap. "No. I mean, leave us. The marriage. I don't think I can do this anymore." Silence. He stared at me for what felt like forever. The only sound was the gentle simmer of the sauce behind him. "Is this about something I said?" He asked, cautiously. "Did I miss something?" "No," I whispered. "It's not you. I need space. I haven't felt like myself in a long time. And I don't know who I am anymore, and I just need to figure it out on my own." A lie, wrapped in something that sounded noble. He exhaled slowly, rubbed the back of his neck. "So that's it?" His voice cracked just slightly. "You woke up this morning and decided you're done." I couldn't answer. Not without breaking. "You don't want to try? Talk to someone. We can figure this out. We've always figured things out, haven't we?" I shook my head. "I've already made up my mind." There it was again, that stillness. He looked down, then back at me, like he was searching for something he couldn't find in my eyes anymore. "Are you seeing someone?" His voice was so quiet, I almost missed it. My throat tightened. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no. He nodded once. That was enough. He stood slowly, walked to the stove, turned off the burner, picked up the plates he had just finished setting and carried them to the sink. No yelling, no begging, just a quiet resignation. "Okay," he said, as he started washing the dishes. "If that's what you want." I sat there, stunned. I don't know what I expected. A plea, a question, something. Anything. Not this. "That's it?" I said, more bitterly than I intended. "You're not even going to ask me to stay." He didn't turn around. "I think you left a long time ago already." That broke me more than if he'd screamed. I moved out 2 days later. Julian helped me find a condo downtown. Nothing extravagant, but sleek, modern, polished. The kind of place with soundproof walls and wine shelves and valet trash pickup. He called it a fresh start. I called it freedom, and for a while, I believed that lie. I told myself I had outgrown that life. The cramped apartment, the discount toothpaste, the man who called me baby in texts with too many emojis. I told myself this was who I was now. A woman with a rising career, a better life, a better man. Julian took me to jazz bars, introduced me to his friends, sharp, smooth-talking people with vacation homes and LinkedIn bios full of words like executive strategist and investment partner. I'd smile and sip cocktails I couldn't pronounce, pretend I belonged. We went on weekend getaways, slept in hotel rooms with Egyptian cotton sheets. I was living my someday, the someday I had always dreamed of living. And yet, something always felt off. Like I was performing a version of myself, one that smiled too much, laughed too loudly, drank too often. Julian was thrilling, but never gentle. He didn't hold me after. Didn't ask about my day. Didn't know my mom's name, or what flavor of tea I liked when I was sad. He didn't love me, not the way Miles had. 3 months after I left, I got a letter in the mail. Not a text, not an email. A handwritten letter, 2 pages, folded in half, with my name written in his handwriting across the front. Miles. I read it sitting on my condo floor, surrounded by unpacked boxes I'd never bothered to finish emptying. He didn't say he hated me. He didn't ask why. He just wrote that he hoped I found what I was looking for. That he'd be moving out of state soon for a new opportunity. That he wouldn't be keeping any of the furniture. That I could come get anything sentimental if I wanted before he donated the rest. And at the bottom he wrote, I meant it, you know. Every part. Loving you. Believing in you. Even if it ended like this. You were my favorite chapter. I cried until my ribs hurt. Then I folded the letter, tucked it into a drawer, and told myself it was too late to miss him. You know what's funny? Julian lost his job 2 weeks later. Apparently, he'd slept with another intern. Or 2. The board found out. There was an investigation. And just like that, the man who had promised me a life of more passion, more success, more future, was unemployed and bitter, crashing on his brother's couch. He didn't even tell me directly. I found out through a colleague who assumed I already knew. When I confronted him, he brushed it off. Things happen, he said. I've bounced back before, just need time. But time didn't help. He got angry, short-tempered, cold, started drinking more, started blaming me. You don't support me like he did you. He once spat, drunk and jealous. Funny how that works. He was right. I didn't support him. I couldn't. Because deep down, I knew the foundation of what we had wasn't love. It was escape. He was my ticket out, not my person to build with. When he asked to move in with me, I said no. 2 days later, he ghosted me completely. The condo felt enormous after that. Cold, lifeless. I used to love the silence. Now it felt suffocating. I started checking Miles' social media. There wasn't much. A few photos. A blank profile picture. But then I saw it. A post from an old friend of his, congratulating him on the new promotion and the move to Chicago. Chicago. He always wanted to live there. Said he loved the snow, the energy, the skyline. I sat with that post for hours, refreshed the page, stared at the comments, and realized something that hit me like a slap. Miles was doing better without me. He was thriving. While I was alone in a condo, I couldn't afford without Julian's connections, clinging to a career I no longer had the passion for, and living with the haunting echo of every lie I told to justify what I did. I gave up the man who would have carried my world just to make me lighter. For one who dropped me, the moment I couldn't shine for him anymore. And now, there's no one to carry me, not even myself. I reached out 6 months after I left. I told myself it was just to check in, to see how he was doing, to maybe apologize if the moment felt right. But deep down, I was hoping for something more. A crack in his voice. A sign he still missed me. A lifeline back to the man who had always loved me, even when I didn't deserve it. I texted first, "Hey. I heard about the move. Just wanted to say congratulations." He didn't respond. A week later I sent another, "I've been thinking about you. A lot. Still nothing." So I called. Voicemail. Then again, and again. Eventually, the line didn't even ring anymore. He had blocked me. I emailed him. I wrote 4 drafts before I finally sent it. I told him I was sorry. That I had made the worst mistake of my life. That I wasn't asking for forgiveness, only a conversation. Just 10 minutes. Just coffee. Just closure. He didn't reply, but I know he read it. The read receipt stared back like a silent scream. A year passed. The clinic didn't renew my contract. My reputation never quite recovered after the scandal with Julian, even though I'd had nothing to do with his firing. Word spreads fast. Whispers stick, and being the intern he dated became a stain I couldn't scrub off. I moved back to a cheaper apartment, started picking up freelance gigs, drowned in bills, answered calls from collectors with a fake cheerful voice, went days without speaking to anyone at all. I used to be the girl with the dream. Now I was just the girl who gave up everything for a man who didn't even stay, and lost the one who would have stayed through anything. The last time I saw Miles, it wasn't planned. I was visiting a friend in Chicago, or maybe I told myself that to justify going. I walked into a coffee shop near the waterfront, and there he was, sitting by the window, laughing. He looked different, happier, more rested, like someone who had finally put down something heavy. There was a woman with him. Her hand was resting on his arm. Her eyes were soft, adoring. I froze. I wanted to walk over, to say something, anything, but I didn't, because for the first time, I understood I wasn't part of his life anymore, not even as a memory he smiled at. So I turned around, walked out, and let him go. Some mistakes don't get redemption. Some love doesn't come back, no matter how sorry you are. And sometimes, the man who would have given you the world is the one you taught to stop offering it.